How's your family doing, since the tragedy with your dad?
Rough on my mother.
Yeah, well. How old is she now?
She's 69. Mom really went downhill after the World Trade Center. Quasimodo predicted all this.
Who did what?
All these problems, the Middle East, the end of the world.
Nostradamus. Quasimodo's the hunchback of Notre Dame.
All right. Nostradamus.
Nostradamus and Notre Dame. It's two different things completely.
To his co-actors and family, James Gandolfini wasn't anything like the mobster he played so well on The Sopranos, Tony Soprano. Critic and film historian Jason Bailey did a lot of research and talked with many of those friends and collaborators to learn more about the man who died in 2013 at the age of 51.
His book is called Gandolfini, Jim, Tony, and the Life of a Legend. Jason, good morning. How are you, my friend?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I was able to squeeze it in right after my shake weight workout. So thank you, thank you for that.
That's good. We know how to start the day for everybody. It's so fascinating, the conversations about James Gandolfini and The Sopranos in particular. Just seeing that one clip brings back a million memories of how must-see TV it was back in the day, and I can't believe it's like 25 years since it debuted.
I know.
But what is the attraction after all these years, do you think, to Tony Soprano and Gandolfini, the actor?
I mean, I think the attraction and the fascination is sort of one and the same, that there's so much nuance, that it was such a complicated character, that it could have been this very, one-dimensional gangster guy. But Gandolfini himself had such vulnerability and such a sort of sweetness to him that came through in the character, and I think really complicated our notions of what this kind of guy would be. And I think that's a huge part of why that show made the impact it did and has stuck around the way it has.
Talk about the casting for James Gandolfini. That David Chase, I think, said initially didn't want to cast him because he wasn't threatening enough. How did that turn around?
They had sent over, his managers had sent over, a reel, and that, he was sort of, Gandolfini at that time was trying to get away from playing these tough guys, these thug characters. And so that was Chase's only sort of objection, was he said, I mean, I know he's a good actor, but is he threatening enough? To which his manager said, if you're worried about weight or hair loss or something like that, I can understand, but no, you don't need to worry. He's plenty threatening.
But is the character not developed in a big way by the writer? So what does he have, what did he add that was outside of those parameters?
I mean, first of all, as in any long-running television show, when you play a character long enough, pieces of yourself start to become part of the character. We get into that in the book a bit as well. But ultimately, he was such a gifted nonverbal actor. He could communicate so much with what he was doing with his eyes, with how long he would take to reply with a line. He was sort of finding ways to sort of color inside the lines and shade in grays inside the sort of blacks and whites that we tend to think of with that sort of character.
Jason, how uncomfortable would James Gandolfini be with all this attention, all these years? And he's like the subject of 3 or 4 books. He would hate it, I get the sense, right?
He was someone who shied away from the spotlight, who never was going for stardom. He always just intended to be a character actor, a supporting player, and would have probably remained that had this extraordinary television show not come along. So when he became famous, he did not enjoy it at all. He very much shied away from the spotlight. And in fact, when I interviewed Robert Eiler, who played AJ on The Sopranos, the last thing he told me, and the last thing that's in the book, is he said, no offense, but Jim would have hated your book. People saying all these nice things about him. He's so mad about this book right now. And
that's interesting. And the dark themes of The Sopranos, you say, took a toll on James Gandolfini in his private life, right?
They did. He prided himself on being quite separate from this character and sort of the way he approached life. But this is not like playing a bad guy in a movie for 2 months and then you get to shed it and go on with your life. He was playing this character 9 months out of the year for 9 years of his life. And after a while, that darkness starts to come into your soul a little bit. And it did. It took a toll on him in terms of his personal relationships. It ended his marriage. He had some substance abuse issues, but luckily after the show ended and he was able to sort of get that out of his system, he was able to turn his life around to a great extent.
Yeah, so anyway, you said his team, they had concerns about wanting to get away from playing that type of character, and I'm sure the money was great, but at some point did he feel trapped by the idea that he might be typecast?
Absolutely. And what's fascinating about his film career, both during and after the show, is you see the ways in which he was pushing against that typecasting, that role had almost become a straitjacket. After that, you either see him going completely against type and playing like buttoned up military types, generals and, CIA directors and things like that. Or when he did do a Tony Soprano type role in films like The Mexican or Killing Them Softly, he took great pains to subvert those characterizations, to sort of use the baggage of Tony Soprano and then surprise us with where the character went.
The book is called Gandolfini, Jim, Tony, and the Life of a Legend. And you can follow it all on the socials that we've got up on the screen. Jason Bailey, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.